Hi everyone, here's a new beading project. It is based on the hope symbol of the 8-pointed star. And today I'll be demonstrating this one. This one was using size 6 beads. This one was using size 8 beads. The 6 beads are bigger, so easier for demonstrating. And at the end of the video, I will talk a little bit more in depth about the difference in the size of the beads, type of needles, and I'll go more in depth on 8-pointed star and what it represents. So the idea behind this beading project is to celebrate the winter solstice and just have something to wear to represent that, perhaps. And I have this book here, Mouse Celebrates the Winter Solstice. And in the book, it says, what is the winter solstice? In the north, the winter solstice usually falls on December 21st or 22nd of each year. It is the shortest day and the longest night of the year. For many indigenous peoples, the winter solstice was and still is a time of celebration. It marks the coming of the long days of winter. It is a time to use up all of the stored food that will not last through the winter months. It is a time to share, to feast, and to celebrate with family and friends. You can do your beading colors however you like. I was thinking of doing my center either yellow or orange, kind of representing that the small little circle in the center is the sun going away during winter. And then the outer areas are probably going to be blue and white to represent the winter coming in. So to begin this, you could do two different ways. You can print out the image, and if you're using a dark colored felt, you can put it on your felt, and then you can staple it on all four corners, or you can lightly sew the paper on all the way around. This will give you a pattern that you can bead directly right onto the paper so that you can follow these lines. And then towards the end, we will trim out this section of paper and it'll just come off. The other thing is, if you have a light colored piece of felt, you can draw your image on, and I think I can even see through the design, see through. I know it's hard to see on camera, but I should be able to make a tracing here. It's hard to do while I have the camera in one hand, but I will fix this to make it a nice circle. But basically, I can trace all of the design here, and then I will just have pencil on top of my felt. And then we have our base to begin beading on. Now that I've got this, I just stapled it. I've got my needle here, and I like to use a long piece of thread just so I don't have to keep threading. I think I did 2 arms length of thread, but you can do 1 arm length if you don't like having too long of a piece of thread. And I'm currently using a needle called Sharps, but you can use a beading needle if your felt is not too thick. You can also use embroidery needles as well, depending on what's in stock. I know that I've been having trouble finding Sharps lately. So what we're going to do in this case, because it's a little bit different than the t-shirts we've done where we're just doing a straight line to start, we're actually going to do the center by going around in little circles like this. So you want to find your center here, and I'm just going to mark myself a little dot because this is where I want my first bead to rest. And so I've got my knot already on my thread, and what I'm going to do is just underneath here, I'm just going to not go all the way through, but just get this tight on here. My knot wasn't very good, as you can see. It's a little bit big. But what you can do is you can always put a little piece of vinyl or something on the back so you won't see any of the messy stitches on the back. And you'll find out that your thread gets caught on things when you have it really long. And what I want to do is I need to bring my needle up. I'm just going to do it off camera for a second. So I want to bring the needle up just beside the hole, just beside the center hole here, okay? Because I want my bead to end up in that center. So, okay, so I pull the thread through now, and now I'm going to load my bead on. And because this is a circle, it's a little bit different. I'm just starting with one bead. One bead. And now I'm going to drop the bead down. And then what you want to do is bring your needle just on the other side of the circle. Okay, and you do it kind of on an angle on the other side. Sorry that the focus is going in and out. Okay, and now I have my center bead in position right in the center. Okay, so now your thread's coming out the bottom after you did that, so you want to bring it back up again, right beside the center bead. Okay. Okay, so now you're going to load 6 to 7 beads on, depending on your beads. I'm using size 6/0 beads, and the bag I bought was a bargain bag. So the beads are not very uniform. So some are a little bit bigger, some are a little smaller. So this is going to change depending on what type of bead you have. And I see that this is not very clear. Okay, there we go. So I've loaded 6 on in this case, and now I've dropped the beads down. And this is, again, a little bit different than when we were doing the beaded shirts, because this time we're going to go in a circle pattern. And what you do is wrap it around that center bead, and then you go in through your very first one. You go in through the very first one like that, and you're going to end up forming a nice little circle surrounding the center one. Okay, see how that worked? There you go. Now, this is now floppy. See how it moves around, right? The beads don't stay. So what you have to do is something called tacking down. So now you're going to tack down each bead. So you got to keep this pulled tight. And what you'll do is go down between the little strings between each bead and tack them down. So right now my string's coming up. So in this case, I want to go down. I'm going to go down right in between, let's right about there, beside the center bead. And again, in the beginning, when your string is really long, it's a little bit more difficult. Okay, so there, that's tacked down that one. Now I move over to the next set, and you can come up either here or here, depending on what you want to do, but I'm going to come up. I like coming up from the inner side. And of course, it should be faster for you when you're not trying to film at the same time, because I'm not very close to my eyes are not really close to this, and so it's harder for me to see what I'm doing. But normally you can bring this right up to your face and see where you're placing your needle, but it's just a little bit harder for me while I'm trying to film. Okay, so there's the second one done. Now I'm going to come up again over the next one. There we go, that was the right spot. And I'm going to go down over the other side. I'm sorry that I'm going in and out of the screen, but it's because I'm having trouble doing this and being able to see. So I've been pulling it towards me. Okay, so I'm just going to do this all the way around. Up and then over. Until all these beads are tacked down. And sometimes you have to be careful that the thread goes on the side that you want it to go on. So, okay, I'm going to the next one. I need to have a fancy little equipment like other people do, where they're filming, but then they have another screen that shows what they're filming so that they can see what they're actually filming and keep their project in focus. Now I think, yeah, I'm back now. So those are all tacked down now. Okay, so they're tacked down and they're not moving. So now I think I'm going to be able to do one more circle. So now I'm just going to start somewhere, bring my needle up. And what you try to do is bring your needle up about half a bead away, half a bead's length away from this row. Sorry again, I'm out of focus. Okay, so you want to go half a bead. You want to bring your needle up about half a bead's width from this bead. So I want to try to come up right about there. And sometimes it takes a few pokes to get it where you want. Okay? So now I have to figure out how many beads to go. Now normally I like to do 4 beads at a time, but this is a circle, so it's actually easier to do however many beads will form this circle so that you can go in through the back. So that was 6. So I'm going to try 8 to 9 beads and see where we go with this. Like I said, my beads are not uniform at all, so it makes it harder. Okay, so I started with about 8 to 9 and it wasn't enough, so I just kept adding beads until it looked like this is going to be enough. So I think in my case I have about 13, but my beads are different. So anyways, again, I'm going to go through the very first bead here. Okay, and then I'm going to pull this to form a circle. There we go, and that's going to be just about perfect here. Okay, so now I'll just repeat the process and I'll tack each one of these down. I'll just go around and tack each one of these down. And again, you just go up and down depending on what you want to do. If you want to come up from the center and go over, or start from the outside and go in. You can do it which way you want. And so I will finish tacking these all, and then I will be back as we start. I'm going to change my color and we will start doing the points. Okay, so I'm going to move on to some blue beads, And I'm going to start with this point here. And what I'm going to do is, like I said in previous videos, I usually would load on about 4. But I think in this case, it's probably going to be, to make it to the top here, it's probably going to be about 5 beads. So I'm just going to load on 5. Then I drop the beads down to the bottom here. And what you do now is position the beads right along the edge of the star there. And actually, I almost might be able to do one more. So I'm going to put a 6th bead on. Guess I could have done this doing 4 and then 2. But hopefully this will work okay. I might have to extend my outer circle a teeny bit. But what I'm going to do now is just go down there. Okay. So now when you're doing straight, okay, so when you're doing straight lines, you hang on underneath and you kind of pull it as tight as you can here. You can wrap it around your finger if you want to get a tighter pull from underneath. So this is nice and tight. And then you do the same thing with tacking down each bead. So I am going to come up on one side and I'm going to have to let go of this tightness at some point and then just try to pull it tight again. I'm going to go down on the other side. Alright, and I'm just going to continue this, tacking each down. If you feel like you want to tack every second bead down instead of every single one, you can. Not everybody tacks every single bead down. I just do because I enjoy beading and I'm not in a rush. But sometimes when you have limited time, you know, you might want to not tack every single one down. Now, when this happens and it starts to go in the wrong place, you just move it over with your thumb and then pull until it goes into the correct space. Okay, so there we go. We've got our first row. Now, this is where, now we're down here. And I mean, unless I wanted to continue over here, which I could, and then kind of go around in a pattern, which isn't too bad of an idea. But generally, the technique is to make a double spine. So in order for me to get my thread back to the top here, I'm going to come back up at the bottom of those 6 beads, and I'm going to bring my needle through all 6 like this, bring it through, and now it's creating a double spine. And basically what that is the string going in the middle is a spine, and there already was a string going through the middle, and now we brought it through, and now we've got 2 strings going through. So now I can move over and continue going down. So I think I'm going to have to, I want to start right about here. So I'm going to go down first. And then I'm going to bring my needle up just down a little bit. Otherwise, there's just not going to be enough room to place the second bead. And so the last one was 6 beads. So this one will probably be 6 as well, depending on the size of my beads. So I'm going to try to choose beads that are very similar in size. Like I can tell that one's smaller. How many do I have? 4, 5, 6. Okay. So there we go. I've got 6, and I'll see if that's going to be, that is going to be probably too much, so let's see. It actually looks like I might only need 4, so I'm going to take these 2 off. And luckily with big ones, I can just go backwards and slip them off. Alright, so I'm going to put the 4 in, 4 beads in, and go down right about there. Okay, and then same thing, you're going to tack the beads down. And so the reason why I generally like to do 4 beads at a time as opposed to like a big long row of like 10 is because when I'm tacking down, it's sometimes forget how many I've done. So when I've got 4 beads, I know I'm going to be tacking down 3 because I'm going to go in between here, 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 and here. So that's 1, 2, well, why is this 4? Did I have 5 beads? 1, 2, 3. Oh, I ended up having 5 beads on here. Okay. But normally if it's 4 beads, you're only tacking down 3 times. So I kind of count 1, 2, 3, and then I know I'm done. See, I've already forgot where I was. But it doesn't matter if I do one of them twice. It just means that it's extra tacked down. I thought I was putting 4 beads on this one, but I guess I had one that was really small right there, so ended up being 5. Okay, so there, we've got 1 point done. And I wonder if I got like a really small bead, if I could fit it in there. Let's see if I have any. I have to, first of all, if I want to try to do that, bring my needle up to the top, bring it through this one so I'm in the ready position. And let's see if I can add a small one here, just to see what it would look like. Let's see. Do I like that better? I think I do. Okay, so I'm just going to put this 1 single bead. I'm just going to add it back. So I ended up having 6, but that's only because I have a couple small ones in here. So let me see if I like this. Yeah, it's hard to, it's really hard, isn't it, to decide what you want to do. But yeah, I think I'll leave that. Now my thread's at the bottom. So I'm going to come up now and just fill in the center with beads. And this will just end up being kind of random. You can just fill it in however you want. Like I might be able to fit 3 in here. Let's see, 3. Yeah, I think I can put like 3 in here, and then maybe I can put 1 in after. So I am going to, so all this part is basically just guessing how many beads, and it looks like I need another one up there. So that's all you're going to do now, is just continue this process all the way around, filling in your sections with beads, deciding how many you want in there. If you don't like it, you can add more. And I'm going to, I want to add another bead on top of this one, so I'm going to go through this one again so that the string is coming out the top so that I can add another one. I think I need a small one. So let's see if I can fit one right in there. I can squish it in there. Okay. There we go. Now I'm going to tack just that single one down. Okay, and now I'm going to move down here and add 2 or 3 in that space. Let's see, yeah, I can, it's hard to fit them in. So another thing you can do is go to size 8 beads, which I just wanted to use bigger beads for the demonstration. Of course, you can go down to size 12 beads if you want, but if you don't have the greatest eyesight, then it's easier to thread the bigger beads. But if you go down to the size 8, they're going to be a little bit smaller than the 6. I know it sounds 8 is bigger, but size 8 is actually, the beads are smaller. So then you'll be able to fit your beads better in these small spaces. It's a little bit more difficult when these beads are big like this. So I'm probably going to end up altering this pattern a little bit because it might be hard. Like this is already a bit wider than it originally was supposed to be. So it might have been better if I blew up this particular pattern just a little bit bigger so that this is a little bit wider, because these are going to be very small to do. And that's all there is to it. Okay, so I now have finished filling in all the blue that I want to do. And what I'm going to do now is, if you had pencil drawn your shape on here, then you won't have to do this step. But I am going to remove the paper. So I'm just going to remove the paper as much as possible. Okay, and then you're going to keep in mind that you're doing this shape. So what I'm going to do next is I am going to put a row of beads around the perimeter here, around all the points. And then after that, I'm going to fill in the spaces with another color like white. Cut this out now because I don't want to have to worry too much about my cutting off my stitches here. So I am going to cut in a circle. I'm going to cut myself a circle going around this. Okay. There we go. And now I don't have to worry about trying to cut this out after and cutting my stitches off. So let me get to the edge here. And what I'm going to do is just do my beads around the edge. So I think I'm going to continue with doing 4 beads and tacking those 4 beads down. And then do another 4 beads It's a little bit different when you get to when you're doing an edge. You could actually, instead of doing the traditional tacking down and going back and doing your double spine like I just did, you can put some on and then you can actually just keep going around the whole thing. So, you know, there's many ways you can do these things. So I'm going to continue. I've got another 4 beads now. I'm going to drop them down. And I'm going to continue doing this all the way around. Okay, so I tacked that next 4 down, and now I'm going to go through the 4 to make that double spine again, and just keep going around. Add another 4 beads until I completely go all the way around. And I will be back when I do that. If you don't like the look of your stitches on the back and you're planning to put an extra piece of felt on the back or piece of vinyl to cover up the look of the stitches on the back, then I would save doing this outer edge of beading until the very end, in which case you can put these beads on at the same time as you're putting your backing on, and then you can, when you're tacking each bead down, you can also be sewing the extra piece of backing or felt at the same time that you're doing these beads. I don't think I'm going to worry about it because no one's going to see the back. I'm just going to put a pin on the back so that I can wear it. Okay, so I've got my ring going all the way around now. And now I'm just going to fill in all these little sections in whichever way I can. I'm going to use white beads right now for that part. And so I'm just going to fill in all these areas with white. And then after that, we will be done. And you can put whatever style of pin you want on the back. You can use a bar pin, or there's other types of pins where it's like a peg and then there's a clip that goes on it. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it right now. Okay, here we go. It's all finished. It's based on this pattern here. And now all that's left to do is to put a pin on the back. And as I was trying to explain earlier, there's this type of pin, this bar pin, or there's these type of pins. The bar pin has holes in it, so you can sew it directly onto the back through the holes. And then if you want, you can add an extra bit of glue. These ones I just glue on. And they have like a little pin there. And the glue that I like is this E6000 glue. It works really well for these type of pins. And again, this one's basically the same type, just a different end cap of pin on it. And this is where I was talking about where you can get a piece of vinyl to cover up all your stitches. Here's the pink shirt one I did, but this time I cut little slits in the vinyl and put the bar pin on that way. So there is several different ways and different types of pins that you can use, and all of these projects I do have on my YouTube, so you can look them up individually, as well as I have some orange shirt, earrings. Sorry, I can't find the other one. I have some that are smaller than this. And then I have some safety pin beadwork. So feel free to check out my other videos. And sorry for my dogs in the background. But good luck, everybody. I hope that you enjoy this one, and take care. Okay, so as far as the beads go, this one was done using size 6 beads, seed beads, and it is easier in a way to do this one because you have less tacking down to do because the beads are bigger, so you're not having to tack down as many beads. Also, it allows you to use a bigger needle, which means you can have a bigger eye, which makes it a lot easier for threading. I don't know how much you can really see in this, but these ones are sharps, which is what I was using. And they have a fairly big hole in them. But I found that when I switched to this one, which I was using size 8 beads, and 8 beads are one size smaller than the other ones, I wasn't able to keep using the same bigger needle because the top of the needle's head, the beads would get stuck right there. They couldn't fit over the bigger head. So then I went back to my beading needles, and you can see that the beading needles are very small. This is a package of beading needles, and it's very small, so it's more difficult to, like, here's the I don't know, this is on a black background, so it's hard for you to see, but the hole is a lot bigger on the sharps on the right than the beading needles. Also, if you're going to use the beading needles, your felt can't be too thick. I mean, this was pretty thick felt, and I still was able to use it on these ones. But I definitely prefer using the thicker sharps, but then they just wouldn't fit over the end here. But the nice thing about using the smaller ones is I find that you can get a little bit sharper of a detail, because when the beads are bigger, it's harder to get them to fit the way you want them to fit. Like this particular branch didn't work as well. So yeah, it just depends on what you're going for. Like, I'm working on this right now. It's a different beading project, and these are, I think, 10 or 11, so they're even smaller, but it allows me to do more intricate details. So it just depends on what you want to do and who your audience is if you're doing a workshop. Because if people can't thread, then it becomes very frustrating having a very small needle. The other thing is thread. When I'm using these bigger 6 seed beads, I usually just go and buy some upholstery thread. It's not very expensive. You get a big roll, and it's nice and thick, and it works well. But because it's thicker, you do need to have the bigger sharps, or needles with a bigger hole. And so when I switched over to this one and was trying to use these needles, I just was not able to thread. It just kept fraying on the end. So then I had to switch to a different thread, and I ended up using this black thread here. And this one is size D, I think it was Nymo thread. It worked. It's a little bit thinner, but then you have to go and buy a beading thread, and I've been finding the beading thread harder to locate, whereas I can just go to Fabricland or a sewing store and get the upholstery. But you do need to be using the bigger size. So the thick felt you can also buy at Fabricland, and the beads, a good place for around here locally is Bedazzle. For me personally, I chose these colors because I was thinking about how in the winter time, you know, we start to get less sun, and then the blues and the whites are sort of representing the coldness, snow and ice. This one, I basically was somewhat doing the same thing. This representing the sun in the middle, or it could even represent the moon. And then the white is the snow, and the red. The red, I was thinking of poinsettias, but even though I know poinsettia is a different shape, but that's just what I was thinking when I was making these. So this image is an 8-pointed star that symbolizes hope and guidance. The circle is supposed to signify protection, and the circle has no break and cannot be broken. The inner star here points to the 4 cardinal points, east, west, north, and south. And then the points on the outer part of the circle lead to the summer solstice, where the sun's path would be at its farthest north and the days are longest. The winter solstice, marking the onset of winter, the summer and winter equinox, when day and night are of equal length. Each are important times in the forthcoming year and are symbols of hope for the future. And so the whole thing together forms this pattern. And it says that the hope symbol of the 8-pointed star therefore represents the 4 cardinal points of north, south, east, and west, and their connection to the outermost points on the horizon where the sun passes through the year, the solstice and equinox points.